show again. Welcome, low ego action heroes. I was just saying I am totally unprepared for the show. My boyfriend and I went down an IMDb rabbit hole, and all of a sudden it's 6:31, and I'm supposed to go live at 6:30, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. Didn't even get my concealer on, so here I am without concealer. Then didn't unmute myself. Oh my gosh, thank you all for putting up with me. It's so good to see all of you. Itan's here, Solomon, Charlene. Hi. So anyway, I am still opening up all of my effects and my pieces, but at least I do have all of the reaction stream stuff queued up and ready to go. Why does it say low volume? Can you all hear me? This what? Oh, I never set up the microphone. I have no microphone. No audio? I sound like I'm far from the microphone. Hold on a minute. What microphone is working right now? Sennheiser headset. Oh. Hello? Let's start this show a third time. Oh my gosh, everybody. I am so sorry. So, yeah, thank you, Darren. Yeah, so, oh boy, I have a lot of explaining to do before we get into this reaction stream. Okay, so thing one. Totally unprepared for my own stream. I went down an IMDb rabbit hole with my boyfriend, and I am not ready at all. I didn't have anything turned on. I don't have my concealer on. Then I didn't have myself unmuted, and then I thought that was a mess. Then it turns out I never plugged in this microphone because I did an alumni, I recently finished an MBA, and they did an alumni meetup the other night, and it was karaoke, and it was 1 in the morning my time, and so I'm not going to do it at this desk. So of course I unplugged all my equipment and I brought it into my vocal booth in the other room. So the thing that this microphone plugs into is in another room. I totally forgot. But at least I'd set this one up as a plan B. So, oh my gosh, Solomon, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. That helps me feel a lot better about how this show has started. Man, oh man, do we have an exciting show for you today when I can finally get it started, because you have sent in 25 things for me to review for the reaction stream. And so sorry I'm not on my usual microphone. I know this one's a little bit more tinny. But yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today, and so this is probably going to run a little bit late. And oh, now my effects don't want to come up. This is super. We're probably going to need those. So so give me just a few seconds to try to set up my effects, which means I'm going to need a different IP number. Yeah, these are the fun things that go on behind the scenes. 43.10. But meanwhile, let's just talk quickly and thank the people who are our mid and senior low ego action heroes on the YouTube channel, where you are donating to the cause here. Thank you so much for that. Always appreciated, and everybody knows I reinvest this in the channel, and then I spend some of it on chocolate chips. So thank you so much for that. To Anita, Chang, Darren, someone calling themselves what I think would be I Can, Irena, Jordan, Michelle, Nikki, Ralitza, Ray, Solomon, and our super Mix Betty. So thanks to everybody who is financially supporting on YouTube. Itan says, I sent one thing, but I forgot. Yeah, we haven't been here for 2 weeks, and let's test my effects. Okay, I've got that running over on the Surface Pro. All right, let me try switching screens, and we will jump in, and I'm going to have to do lightning round for all of these because, again, with 25 things to go through, I cannot spend minutes and minutes on them. This show will never end, and some of you will want it to end. So let's take a look at all the things. All right, now let's press the right buttons. Let's see, I think it's this button. How's that look? Yes, okay, great. So, oops, wrong. So, right. So we've got my browser, which is a private browser, and we've got the chat room and the tip jar and me. And by the way, everybody, I've made a new page, which is deltacx.com/links. all the links that you could possibly want here. How do I ask a question? How do I send in something for you to react to? How do I leave a tip? How do I sign up for your giveaway? All these links are now on the links page. Hey, Ralica. So let's jump in, and I'm going to just try to go super lightning version on all of these. Did I just press the countdown button? No, hopefully not. If there's a countdown going, just ignore it. Oh, somebody did something, but I don't see it. Oh my God, Darren! Thank you, Darren! Darren, thank you. You're already a low ego action hero donating to the channel. Darren, thank you so much. I can't say enough about that. Thank you. You've completely, you've thrown off my numbers, but thank you. Just a reminder to people, we are now running ads on many videos on this channel, but I am donating that money to charity. In October, our donation was to the Breast Cancer Society of Canada. I will be donating the ad revenue or 50 American dollars, whichever is higher. And my ad revenue for October so far is 4 American dollars. So we've given $50 to the Breast Cancer Society of Canada, and we'll pick a charity each month and make sure that the ad revenue goes there. Now, that is different from the super sticker revenue. That I'm going to hold on to because, again, I reinvest that in the channel and I buy delicious chocolate chips. So thank you again, Darren and Solomon. This might be a new record already for the streams. All right, let's get in. So, lightning round, someone sent me this one. This was a Gawker article about being critical about the things that Facebook does, of course, with their um, the way that they manipulate people. But the person who sent this in wanted to ask me specifically about kind of these first few sentences, which was, there's a quote here that says, there are only two industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. And the person asked what I thought about calling people users. And I have to say that in general, with or without walnuts, just chocolate chips. And I have to say, I'm not one of those people who gets hung up on users versus customers versus consumers versus humans versus people, because especially when you think about a company like Facebook, we cannot assume that if we called it human experience design or person experience design, that Facebook would have been any better, that Facebook would have made better ethical decisions. So I think that when a lot of people say, oh, if we call them users, it dehumanizes them. And I say, okay, fine, I'll call them customers. I'll call them consumers. I'll call them potential customers. Is that better? Did fake agile and fake lean suddenly go away? Poof, I need a puff of smoke graphic. Well, now thanks to Darren, I can buy a puff of smoke graphic and say, did fake agile and fake lean suddenly go away? And all of a sudden we are so much more customer centric because now we're calling them humans. So ultimately, yeah, the end. So basically, I would have to say I don't get caught up in, as my grandfather would say, I don't get caught up in such technicalities. Though the humorous part is, I said to my grandfather, it was something we were talking about, and I said, "You didn't die in World War II," and he goes, "I don't get caught up in such technicalities." So I don't think calling people users is dehumanizing them. They use a product, they use a system. I think it's just an English word that makes sense. Darren says splitting hairs. Cool. Let's go on. Next is, I don't know how to pronounce this person's name correctly, so I apologize. This is Kyrillos Saman. I think I'm connected to this person, but I don't really know them that well, or might be following them. Hi, Madalena. This person says there's no better UX research method than trial and error. Now, of course, I disagree, but let's see what else he's saying. You can do all the discoveries and workshops in the world, but nothing cuts straight to the truth like putting an idea or experiment out to the market in the real world and seeing how it performs. Okay, I'm just going to stop there because this is the lightning round today, and I'm going to say I don't think that's trial and error. I think that would just be evaluative research of a concept or a design. I don't think I would call that trial and error. It sounds like what he means is that he recommends trial and error for design, not for the research aspect of it. It sounds like he's suggesting when you are designing, go for something, try it, fail, make a mistake, do the testing on it, learn from it, make it better. I don't think I would recommend trial and error for research. That doesn't sound like a good approach to research. That doesn't sound like it's got good science and technique and strategy. But I think he probably meant design. So I'm not going to give him any dogs on this one. I think the way it's written is just kind of off. But as for design, I hope we're better than trial and error. I hope we're better than guessing at something and trying to run a quick test and see if it's okay. Larry says if someone is so focused on the superficial aspect of what we call things, they aren't paying attention to the deeper issues. Yeah, that's back on the previous page with the whole users thing. All right, moving on because we have 25 things to look at today. This is a Medium article, The 7 Key Elements of Great UX Design. Now, before I scroll down, because this is a conversation and it's an interactive show, some of you tell me, what do you think are some of the elements of great UX design? Now, of course, notice their subheadline. The whole motive behind user experience is to make users feel good about the product. Now, I would have to say I disagree right there. I tend to feel that the whole motive behind marketing is to make users feel good about the product. I would think that user experience is about making it usable, accessible, designed for needs and tasks. I don't think it's my job to give people an emotional feel-goody thing. So Darren is vomiting. That's fantastic. So let's just skim through this. And they're using this, when you Google images this stuff, this one comes up time after time. Larry says, number one, knowing what problem to solve. Now, they're not going to go in that direction, Larry, though, of course, I agree with you. And Ralitza says, just works and addresses a need. It's very true as well. You're all doing very well, but they're going with useful, learnable, memorable, effective, efficient, desirable, and delightful. And I think some of the one problem with some of these is that it's going to be really hard to measure. We're talking more and more about UX metrics, and are there things that we can measure or quantify that are native to UX rather than just sales or conversions? And some of these seem difficult to quantify. Uh, Larry says the Jacob Nielsen. Was this a Jacob Nielsen thing? Did he steal this from him? I think this was from Don't Make Me Think. I don't remember. Delightful. These are superficial too. Yeah, useful, learnable, memorable, effective. And everybody knows, and I need a graphic for this, but everybody knows that my key problem with most articles, videos, education, and I'm looking at my board to see if I have a graphic for this, and I don't think I do, but it's like, well, now what do I do? Congratulations, you told me I'm supposed to make this learnable or useful. What do I do? How do I do that? This is the graphic I roll out about articles. Is this meaningful, actionable, and helpful? I don't feel like this is. What can I do now that you've told me it has to be effective? What does effective look like? What does ineffective look like? Just show me. Solomon says useful, usable, accessible. There are 5 pillars. What does credible even mean? Oh, Larry says Steve Krug took it from Jacob and cited it. All right. Well, since we're doing the lightning version today, I'm going to move on. But again, whenever I see things like this, I say this is not actionable. Was actionable one of these? Does this undo itself? Is this useful, learnable, memorable, effective, efficient, desirable, and delightful? But is it actionable? No. Moving on. All right. So someone who hates me clearly sent me this video. This is from AJ and Smart. And AJ and Smart are pretty much towards the top of my poop list because they're the #1 agency in the world, and proud of it, when it comes to design sprints. And I think most of you know that I am not for design sprints. Now, why a design sprint organization is trying to give people advice on interviewing for UX designer jobs, I'm not sure, since it sounds like we might be playing a little bit out of our league. But But luckily, he put enough in the description where I didn't have to watch the video because there is no way you're going to get me to watch this guy talk or anything of his. I'd really have to charge you for my time. And so he's saying that 80% of UX designers applying for a job at our company can't answer these two simple questions. Okay. Oh, thank you, Madalena. Thank you so much. Clapping dog. Um, and it's what's your favorite product right now and how would you make it better? Now, I think what's your favorite product or app or website is a fun question to ask someone in an interview. I have been asked that. And how would you make it better? Can be interesting, but remember, we wouldn't even ask that in a research interview. I wouldn't say, "Hey, thanks for walking through that checkout. How would you fix our checkout?" So, I mean, we could try. We could say, how would you improve this? But we don't expect people to design their own, what's the word I'm looking for? To design their own solutions. So how would you make it better? Well, how would I make it better? I would start by running extensive generative research to learn more about it so that I'm not just making it better for myself. We even talked about this in my book. We had an example. Madalena says, AJ and Smart are the masters of design thinking nonsense. Actually, they're the masters of design sprint nonsense. But people love that shit right now, so they've got 212,000 subscribers because everybody wants to run design sprints, and they've put themselves at the forefront of that. So they will retire rich and they win. So I think that again, anytime I see anything where people say these are job interview questions, no matter what I think of their company or them, I would say just be prepared to answer questions like this. And now I'm not going to watch his video to listen for what kind of answer he wants to hear. I would just be honest. What's my favorite product right now? Probably Monday.com. How would I make it better? My favorite features are in beta, so they're incomplete. So I wish it did this, this, and this. But in reality, how I would make it better is extensive generative research to find the opportunities. Larry says, is it an interviewee failure or an interviewer issue? Hard to know. So I'm going to move on. I don't even want to see this guy's face. He is just on the list of people destroying the UX profession because he's out there teaching. We just need to do design sprints. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing fewer UX jobs and lower paying UX jobs. So, wah, wah. All right, moving on. William and Tim, who's been on this show and also spoke at our Concentric conference some months ago, thanks to Darren arranging that. So he wrote, Develop a habit of documentation. Well, I've said that before, so I agree. Keeping records of prototypes, work in progress, project scopes, ideas, concepts, design review feedback, team meeting minutes can come in handy. Oh, but then he says, okay, so yes to that. But then he says, I can't tell you, enough. How an idea that was later accepted to be developed by stakeholders had already been proposed by me months prior. Documenting such thoughts and ideas make it easier to have something to show to prove your workmanship and dedication. This is not the only use case, but it could be helpful again later. So yes, in general, I'm for lots of documentation. Documentation because of decisions, documentation so you remember what you did and can help your future self or someone who takes your job later on. Documentation so you can put some appropriate non-confidential stuff in your portfolio. And in this case, it sounds like he's saying, and documentation in case someone takes your idea or accepts your idea as one to be built, and then you'd be able to say, look at that, that was my idea. That's fine by me. These are all okay. Can't complain here. This is fine. Okay, Rohan Kamath. I don't think I know this person, but I did read this when it first hit LinkedIn. So let me give you the short version of it. The short version of this was this person. Oh, Larry says definition of a consultant: someone who borrows your watch to tell you what time it is, then sells you the watch. Except for you and me, Larry. So the story that this person had posted was about a job that they got at Microsoft, and long story short, they had a very difficult time there. It sounds like they weren't treated very well, and it sounds like they didn't do a lot of things out of fear because they wanted to keep the job. And then eventually, people weren't happy with their work, and they were going to get rid of them. And then it sounds like the original hiring manager who interviewed them managed to pull them out of whatever weird team they ended up on, and that hiring manager was like, why didn't you tell me what was going on? So basically their point here was, my biggest career mistake was staying silent and not speaking up for myself, hoping that things would miraculously fix themselves. This is something we've talked about on the show, not this person's story in particular, but about how it is really important to not be silent when things aren't going quite right. Whether you're talking to a manager or a manager's manager or somebody who interviewed you or HR or whoever it might be, I do think that nothing gets better when you stay silent. And people say, well, what if I say something and it gets worse? That's not supposed to happen. It can happen, but you have to kind of read the situation and decide what you're going to do. But I certainly wouldn't want to see people staying silent out of fear. That's a terrible culture. I wouldn't want you to be silent and afraid to say something or ask questions out of fear. That's a terrible culture. If that's your experience, get out of there. Like, where I thought this person's story was going was like, thank God I left Microsoft. This team I was on was terrible, but it turns out they got put on some other team. All right. Someone sent me an article that Facebook plans to rebrand. Obviously, this was over a week ago, and so now this was uh, what will Facebook's new brand or identity look like? My boyfriend said he was in a panic because Facebook was considering calling everything Horizon or Horizons, and that's a term that I use for myself on the personal side of social media, because it's an old Disney World attraction. But they went with Meta. And I think we don't have to talk about this because we know that rebranding certainly doesn't change a company's ethics. Certainly doesn't change that Facebook wants to be the modern Holy Roman Empire. So Facebook brand name change doesn't mean anything. Who is it? Big Tobacco rebranded as Altria. And no, I don't think they're more altruistic or anything like that because of the brand name that they went with. So I'm assuming that something really bad is happening at Facebook right now that they need to I always look for the hand the magician doesn't want you to look at. When the magician is doing this, I'm looking at the other hand to see what they're pulling out of their pocket. So Facebook is causing a lot of stir with a rebrand. This is probably in response to all of the stuff that's coming out about their mental health stuff. It's like, well, let's stop talking about the mental health stuff. Let's talk about our cool new brand. And so I assume this is a distraction technique, and there must be something else that's going to come out in the news or just came out in the news and they're trying to bury it with this. That would be my guess. Darren says, yep, changing one's name doesn't change who they are. Aitan says, people will soon regret having Facebook on their resume. I'm telling you. Yeah, I've actually been saying for 3 or so years, it might even be in my book, that be careful. You may or may not want Facebook on your resume. The people from Theranos are having trouble finding jobs, and someday that's going to be the people at Facebook, because we're going to look at that person and say, why did you stay so long? If it's that bad, why didn't you stay 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? Figure out what's going on there, realize you can't change it, and get out of there. Hi, Sebastian. Moving on, because we've got 25 things and I'm already half an hour in. People send me design thinking comics, which are always cute, but I don't know what you want me to say because they're pretty much always accurate. But here you go. This person says, we can make it fast, cheap, or good, but you can only pick two. And the I guess the boss character says, well, fast and cheap sounds good to me, so I'll go with those. And they say, no, no, that's not what I meant by good. I mean, good is such a subjective term, isn't it? Clearly, what you think is good is not what I think is good. At least fast and cheap are objectively measurable. Oh my God, why are you building why on earth are you building our website with free WordPress templates? Semantics. Well, I don't know how to respond to that. It's a comic. There you go. Here's a tweet from someone I don't know. Stephen Huber with a B says, no member of the crew interviewed considered this action or had specific knowledge as to the location of the button or its function. So this seems like something is cooking here in boats. I didn't read the whole thing, but basically it looks like let's see, maintenance was not properly performed to keep it ready. The crew lacked familiarity with capability and availability. No member of the crew interviewed considered this action or had specific knowledge of the button or its function. The problem here is that very often, as Larry can tell you, this is blamed on not enough training. That whoever was on this ship and didn't press the right button at the right time, well, they should have had more training, or this will be blamed on the captain, but it should be blamed on UX. Hi, Maggie. Moving on. Scott Birkin, who I don't think I know, said the most effective UX method is your reputation. If you have earned the trust of your team, they will seek out and listen to your expertise. Without a trusted reputation, you could be a master of every method and not influence everything. Yep, back on the other screen, Larry says, training is a symptom, not a solution. So true. So my impression of what Scott's got here would probably just have to be good old-fashioned clickbait, because while I agree that reputation, rapport, relationships, collaboration, these things are really important at our jobs, I wouldn't call these a UX method. I mean, your UX method is still what type of research are you doing? How are you doing your prototypes? How are you doing anything? That's your UX method. I think it's fair to say that that you can be more effective in your job when you have a good reputation and relationships, because that gives you the opportunity to be involved and be more influential. But I don't think it makes sense to say that it's a UX method. So this to me comes off as clickbait, so that people go, yeah, the most effective UX method is your reputation. And I go, I don't know, put on your critical thinking hat about that. It just doesn't make sense. And Darren says what's worse is the volume of folks agreeing. But that's the nature of clickbait. Clickbait is designed for people to press like and agree with it. And it would be so easy for us to write this and do this. In fact, we should create a fake Twitter account and just post stuff like this. You know, let's see if we can think of a few right now. You know, the best UX research method is creating empathy. Oh man, I would get so many likes. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this was an article from Maria. I'm not sure if I know her or not. Larry Marine says scoreboard baby, and Solomon says I'm down for that. Sure, we'll make a fake Twitter account. Let's get on it. So this said, smiling can make us look more competent according to new research. And it says whether facial expressions in a picture can have an effect on how competent a person is considered for a job. Now, my concern about this was that it was not considering cultural divides. So it might be true that in Western Europe or North America, that a smiling picture is considered a better choice for a profile picture or a work picture or something like that. But I think when we look at a lot of pictures on LinkedIn from people from Japan, India, some parts of Africa, I noticed that their pictures are usually head on and not smiling. And I remember when I worked for Sony Mobile in 2012, where half my coworkers were Swedish and half of them were Japanese, and I was seeing some pictures of Japanese people that looked very serious and neutral, and you know, by a North American standard, you're thinking unfriendly. And I asked one of the Japanese people, and they were like, "Oh no, no, that's the best way to take a picture. Like that's the way you should look." So I would say be careful of this because it's going to be different for different cultures. And sure, some people might think that a smiley person is somehow a better choice for the job or a better cultural fit or or make a leap to assuming they're more competent. But be careful because in India or Japan or some of these other places, they might think you're a goofy ass. Madalena says in the UX, pictures on CVs don't exist. They were illegal, I think, in America, or at least badly frowned upon because they kind of opened the door to discrimination lawsuits. Like, oh, well, you saw my resume, you saw what I look like, or you saw my ethnicity or presentation, and you rejected me for the job. This must be discrimination. I'm suing you. So yeah, we're not supposed to have pictures on ours. So this is interesting. You know, the study may or may not be flawed, but I don't think the study is taking all cultures into consideration. And hey, it's a global world. Here's Alba. I didn't have the chance to read this one ahead of time. So this is Alba, who I don't think I know, on Twitter, saying, advice for new researchers. Okay, so if it's advice, I am looking for this to be meaningful, actionable, and helpful. Let's see what we've got. What's one piece? Oh, she's got a oh, so hold on. She's not giving advice. She's asking for it, but then also giving it. I'm a little confused. What's one piece of advice you have for folks diving into research? Oh, Aitan says, "Oh, I sent this one. Fall in love with the research question, not the method. Each research approach has strengths and weaknesses, purpose, and ideal conditions." Well, sure. Here's where we talk about strategy. Strategy says, what is the right method to use based on the research goals I've got or the outcomes I'm eventually shooting for? So, okay, sure. Project constraints are a curse and a blessing. Okay, I would say usually more a curse than a blessing. It's hard for me to think about a project constraint that I've been like, I'm so happy this project constraint is here. Lean into them. Choosing methods ethically depends on more than what you want to study and why. We need to look at factors like researcher skill, feasibility. Okay, I can't disagree with her, but I don't think of those as project constraints. I just think of those as project qualities, project considerations. So again, I would say I mostly like what she's saying, but I'm not totally clicking with it. Get in the habit of project postmortems and regularly scheduled self-reflection. Ooh, I do not schedule self-reflection. That sounds weird, but if it works for you, do it. This process can be cringeworthy. Yes, just hearing about it was cringeworthy and shame-inducing. So be honest but compassionate and generous. Okay, so project postmortem is really kind of your retro. Retros can be good. Self-reflection, if that works for you, I would probably want to show something to a mentor and get their thoughts on it. Document, document, document. Everything. Hey, that's a theme today. Yes. Processes, frameworks, and tools reflect harmful social norms. Researchers have been architects of racism, colonialization, if you want to break that, legacy, engage with activists, social science, critical studies. Yes. Yes and no. Mostly yes. When I try to think about my own process and I try to think like, where is there racism or colonialization in my process, and where can I remove that? And there's times where I can recognize it and try to account for it, and then there's times where I can't do anything about it. For example, if I'm doing a research project and you get to schedule with me, or you get to schedule with me or Larry, that's two white people. That doesn't mean we're racist or colonialists, but it just means we're not really giving you a broad choice of ethnicities of people to talk to. I believe that the future of UX research will have those broader choices. Anyway, Alba's got a tweet storm. I can't stay longer on this one. I think most of this makes sense, but there's a couple of things that I don't totally agree with, but it seems okay. Oh, and she's from Humanity Centered. Oh, great. So we'll be hearing more from her because I signed up for their upcoming course. Check out Humanity Centered and sign up for their new stuff. So yeah, mostly good stuff from her. Yeah, I have a couple of small things where I'm like, I don't know. I've never felt like a project constraint was a blessing, but then she's talking about things that I don't see as constraints. So could just be perspective. But all in all, hard to disagree here. All right, next, Reddit. Are leading questions ever okay? Now, of course, the answer sounds like it's no. We don't want leading questions. But then what I noticed from skimming the comments was that somebody said, well, hypothetically speaking, you might have a screener survey where those questions might be leading. For example, do you live in the United States? Yes or no? Well, it's pretty clear I'm trying to screen for people in the United States, and in that sense, it's leading. So ultimately, I think I agreed with some of the commenters who said, like, look, in a screener survey, you're probably going to have some questions that are semi-leading or give people a little bit of hints of what you're shooting for. Isn't that a leading question? Ba-dum-pa. I don't have that. Darren does. But obviously, in general, and especially with generative and evaluative research, you don't want those leading questions. They're not okay. They're pretty much never okay. But I can see how in a screener survey, you might end up with questions where what you're shooting for is a little bit obvious. All right, moving on at lightning speed because you sent so many lightning. Okay, so this is actually from 2008. So somebody went into the archive and dug this puppy up. Solomon says, I'd love a micro lesson on writing screener questions. Solomon, don't make me do this. Micro lesson, creating UX research screener surveys. All right, so remember, if there's something you're curious about in the Delta CX world, check first on YouTube just by typing Delta CX and the thing you're thinking about. And also follow these links. This new links page has links to everything you could possibly be thinking of in the YouTube world. Sending in a reaction thing, sending in an office hours question, signing up for our Acture training, etc. So yeah, there you go. You're welcome. All right, where were we? Reddit we did. Okay, so this is a real oldie. This is from 2008, and it says why we disagree with Don Norman. Now, I did not read all of this, but I read part of it, and I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot of testicles. So basically, from what I can tell, Don Norman wrote a Wired article about a company called 37 Signals, which some of you might know. I think they make Basecamp, the project management system, which I do not like, so definitely not sponsored. And it sounds like somebody at their company said, I'm not designing for other people. And then it sounds like Don Norman must have jumped on that and basically said, like, so it looks like this is the quote from Don Norman's article. If 37 Signals wants to follow this attitude, I think that is fine. I'm pleased that they're enjoying themselves and that their simple applications do indeed meet many people's simple needs. But I would prefer someone who designs software for other people. If you want a hobby, fine, indulge yourself. Yeah, I don't know 37 Signals. 37. Don't they make Basecamp software? I don't think of them as publishing. I'm in a private browser. Basecamp. Yeah, I don't know. As of 2014, 37 Signals is Basecamp. Maybe they really didn't like that Don Norman pooped on them and decided to rebrand. Who can say? Darren says, I think you're right about Basecamp. Terrible app. And it's interesting because here's Don Norman pooping at them. But if for those of you who've been at this game as long as I have, this was when Basecamp was the shit. Do you remember when everywhere you went, especially since I used to freelance for so many agencies and still do, but this was back in the day where everywhere I went, they gave me a Basecamp account. And then all of a sudden, nobody used Basecamp anymore. I haven't seen it in at least 10 years. I tried to use it once thinking like, oh, will I want to use this? No, I didn't want to use this. So that was the end of that. Solomon's like, agencies. I know. So interestingly, 37 Signals said a bunch of BS that Don Norman reacted to, And then they decided to write a blog post to react to Don Norman's reaction, thus the testicles. So, of course, they're like, oh, well, he's wrong. Here's why we design for ourselves first. Darren says, didn't a bunch of their employees walk out recently? I don't know. I don't follow these things. Um, designing for ourselves first yields better initial results because it lets us design what we know. And everybody knows you make a great product for your users when you start by designing what you know. It lets us assess quality quickly and directly instead of by proxy. Evidently, your users are just a proxy for yourself. And it lets us fall in love with our products and feel passionate about what we make. Do not fall in love with your designs. Isn't that something we tell people all day long? So ultimately, it doesn't make sense for me to go through this whole article. I started skimming it and I thought it was just an embarrassment. I thought it was a bizarre cover your ass thing where if Don Norman had pooped on me in an article, especially based on something I said and quoted me accurately, I think I would just want to make that go away. So uh let's make it go away. Larry says, first rule of UX, you are not the user. Ray says, Darren's everywhere. I love the show. Thanks, Ray. Good to see you. Darren says, I think they abandoned that mindset. I think they would have to. You know, they're trying to quote Steve Jobs. Look, Steve Jobs said so many things over so many years that you can find a Steve Jobs quote that says almost anything. So, F that. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this was sent to me. This is a UI UX design company in India, and evidently they post a lot to Instagram. I don't know them at all. They're called Yellow Slice. I don't know what's yellow or why we're slicing it, but that's who they are. And when I started scrolling down and they said they're a UI UX design company, well, you know, that already seems like a bit of a red flag, though I'll set off the fire video. And but even though I don't want to die on the hill of UI UX anymore, I think we have way bigger problems in UX than did someone write the word UI first. But when I looked at their newest work and it was mostly UI and branding, I realized the term is not the biggest problem here. This is clearly a UI and branding company that believes sometimes they're doing UX work. And I think I even clicked through to this UX project and it was still UI. Um, so, so they made some wireframes, but of course, I don't know how. So again, if this were your portfolio, I would not be interviewing you because you didn't tell me how you got to the wireframes. What is your data? What is your research? What was your process? You can't just go, we got a client and then we made wireframes. That's web design. That's not UX. That is, I'm going to make what the client says. And then they went for visual design where it looks like they either did some illustrations or taped some clip art together. I don't know. So ultimately, I don't have anything to say about these people. I don't know them, but I would not, based on what their website shows me, I wouldn't see them as a UX company. I'm not seeing UX projects. Would you say most agencies do UI work? I think it depends, Roman, who's asking that from LinkedIn. I think it depends. Oh, we've got a new graphic for that. Wait, that depends. Because I think lots of marketing agencies, advertising agencies, design agencies, I think they too do tend to be very UI focused. When a company says they're doing UX, I'm happy to look at their website and see where's the UX. But in this case, I'm not seeing it. So, you know, somebody will hire them for something and maybe their UI work is good, but I wouldn't think of them as a UX agency and I wouldn't think of them as a source of UX education. Like, I wouldn't necessarily follow them on Instagram. And if they're doing the usual UI, UX posts on Instagram, you can skip that. Larry says the only thing worse than agencies selling UX as UI is the plethora of companies that don't know the difference and buy into it. That is true. But at least here it looks like they've at least called some of these things what they were, branding and UI, though of course some of these things say UX, and when I click through to them, I'm looking for anything that looks like a UX process, anything that involved users, anything that was research driven, and it looks like we went from client brief to sitemap. 2 wireframes. So to me, this isn't a UX process. No users were involved. That means this is just web design. And again, web design can be nice when done well, but it's not UX, and they're just two different things. Roman says, I worked in marketing. Most of my career, we rarely did UX. Yes, marketing agencies rarely do UX, and when they do, they rarely do it well. Sorry, marketing agencies. All right. This is a tweet from Indy Young, who I have to admit I'm not really into. We are not buddies. And it says, for qualitative research, I use listening sessions rather than interviews. A listening session only has one scripted question, the germinal question, at the beginning. Then the rest of the focus for the researcher is listening and understanding. So it sounds like this is some sort of technique where you write one question and then the rest of it is unscripted and you're just going to ask impromptu follow-up questions as it goes. Now, I find that hard to believe because when I think about research goals, I think about how I never have only one question for people. And even where I want it to be a conversation and I want their answers to be open, and I'm happy to go off the script and ask follow up questions as needed, I don't think I would only write down or prepare one question. That seems strange. Um, so Wally says, hi everyone, not related to what's on the screen. I'm curious to know what you think about metaverse will affect the field of UX now that Facebook is accelerating it. Facebook is not accelerating UX, Wally, so I'm not sure what you mean. If anything, they're hurting it. Darren says, oh no, not indie. Larry Marine says, shall I say it again? Scoreboard baby. Yeah, so and then I tried to Google listening session and just to see if there was something I was missing, and it basically said this was mostly like a focus group technique where you're trying to start these open conversations. My thought was, I don't know, this sounds a little marketing. I10 says maybe for academic research, not for UX. Don't see it happening. My stakeholders would think I lost my mind. Yeah, and I'm not the kind of person who says make a discussion guide and stick to it. Don't go off it. I would never say that. You always have to go off of it. You have to ask logical follow-up questions. You have to chase down things. You have to go where the information's going to go, but I don't think I would prepare only one question. Darren says no companies shift UX through their thoughts and actions. Zero. Just Mag says, oh, this thing here. Ralitza says, this sounds like a talk show question where people can talk on whatever. Yeah, this is not like an expert panel where you're going to just throw a question at Darren, Debbie, and Dr. Nick and we end up talking for 20 minutes. So she's here and says, Meta reminds me of James Halliday and his Oasis in Ready Player One. Everybody watch the pitch meeting for Ready Player One. All right, let's move on. We still have like 8 more things. Sorry, this one's going to run late. This is Go Protos Design, who I've already blocked on LinkedIn for putting up too much UX versus UI, and here they are on Instagram doing UX and UI. So let's fall for it. This says, which career path should you choose, UI or UX? Well, at least they acknowledge that these are possibly 2 different things. UI is user interface. Designers are responsible for creating interfaces that are aesthetically beautiful, from color palettes to the interaction of a drop-down menu. No, 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 no. I'm always surprised when I see people saying that UI designers and visual designers are responsible for layouts, and I'm always surprised when I see people say UI designers and visual designers are responsible for interaction design. They're not. They're just not. I mean, you can give that to them, but I would say, have you properly assessed them for that work? Have you properly assessed them for knowing foundations of cognitive psychology and human behavior so that they know the best way, and of course, interaction design principles, so that they understand interactivity of a drop-down menu? UX stands for user experience. UX designers are skilled at identifying problems and making interfaces as easy to use as possible. Okay, it's a simplistic definition, but it seems okay. Darren says Instagram is a hotbed of UX misinformation. I'm out there trying to change the direction in the narrative. Yeah, I meant to tell you, Darren, you're posting your UX uncensored stuff on your photo account because I follow your photo account from my secret personal account, and you're mixing the two. I don't know if you meant to do that. Um, Responsibilities for UI designers. You'll need to understand responsive design and make decisions about how transitions and interactivity work. And again, that's where we get in trouble, because when we tell UI designers they're responsible for interactivity, they often think that it's their job to wireframe and prototype and create the entire experience. Darren says, I did that on purpose once or twice. Well, guess who noticed? As the progress of your design, you'll likely work with UX to test your work before it goes into development. So this just got a little bit weird. Um, so basically, we're spending too much time on these people. I blocked them on LinkedIn. I have nothing positive to say about them, and I don't know why we're even looking at this. Larry says, if UX is like architecture, UI is more about landscaping rather than determining how the door opens and closes. I always say that UX is your building architect, UI is your interior designer. You need both. They're both important, but they don't do the same thing. All right. Y'all sent me this person who, again, I don't know, but I think we've seen a video from her before. And this was how should you approach whiteboarding UX design challenges? And I did watch the video. I watched it at 2x. And basically, she has it broken down here with the chapters, which is what interviewers are looking for, the challenge prompt, do's and don'ts, articulating the problem statement, understanding the context, assumptions and constraints, involve the designer, user journey, key screens and flow, and summarize. In general, I thought her video was really pretty good. The only thing I disagreed with her in that she left something out that I would have said is the example she gave of when she interviewed, I think, for Uber, and Uber asked her to design something that was real for the Uber product. And while I know everybody feels stuck doing design challenges and that they don't have a choice, I do think that if you are going to take a stand against the companies that want you to solve a real problem in their real company or product or service or system when you are still interviewing. I get paid X dollars an hour to solve real problems for companies. If you're giving someone a design challenge, it should really be a sample or example that is unrelated to the business or entire industry of the company. So be careful. But if you do want her tips on whiteboard challenges, I think her tips are quite fair. I can't really fault her tips, but again, I would probably be standing up to a company who has such a challenge. All right, and moving on. Okay, so this is a Medium article that says what I learned in Squid Game from a UX perspective. Now, it went really viral when someone wrote one of these and the answer was no. You know, what can you learn from Squid Game from UX? And the answer was no, nothing. And it was funny and it was cute, and we were happy to see they didn't try to relate Squid Game to UX. And then this person decided to jump on that. Darren's totally right, clickbait. This person decided, no, I am going to relate Squid Game to UX. And you know what? I couldn't even read it because I felt like the title should have been what I saw in Squid Game that I figured I could reverse engineer to say was really somehow about UX. I'm not sure that anybody saw Squid Game and learned anything about UX. I'm not watching Squid Game, just a guess there. Um, Solomon says, no matter what, they'll be tempted to use your research and your ideas, and they haven't hired you yet. Yep, that's back on the previous screen, so true. So I didn't read this, and I just figured it was clickbait because, nope, you're not going to learn UX from Squid Game, so let's just not. I understand that that's clickbait, and I understand it's going to do well in SEO, at least for the next few weeks, and then no one's going to read this ever again, so pass. Okay, this is UXPA Magazine, which, funny enough, the website looked so wacky to me. I was like, gee, how old is this article? But the article is quite recent, evidently. Darren says, saw it, saw no parallels, didn't think about UX, learned nothing, saw no metaphors to leverage. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, so here's somebody saying that to drive user centricity at your company, you can build an experience vision. So, you know, when I think about things like this, and I just did the NNG course on UX vision and strategy, which some of you know from the Slack channel that I ran hot and cold on, and I'm not sure if I would recommend it or not. But So I do think vision and strategy are important, but when I started skimming this article earlier today, there was stuff here that didn't make sense. For example, if we're going to create an experience vision, and this company is Red Hat, I couldn't figure out why they said, okay, we chose to vision with our target users. Yes, you should focus on your target users. This is not a surprise. And then it says, we made a fictitious company name and fictitious people and highlighted the phase of their ideal journey with Red Hat's portfolio. Oh, Wally says, spoiler alert, Squid Game has a bad ending. Don't waste your time. Again, go watch the pitch meeting on YouTube. Just pitch meeting Squid Game. I love pitch meetings. I watch like 20 a day. Okay, so this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense for what I understood about experience visions before I did the NNG course, and it certainly doesn't match what NNG told me about experience visions. Now, what's really important about experience visions and strategy is that if you are going to go through this process, then this is a process of documenting and mapping the as-is state, which you're typically going to do through customer journey maps and or service blueprints. But where do you get that from? You get that from great qualitative research. So, great qualitative observational research. Make your customer journey map or your service blueprint. If it's a service blueprint, you probably have to do internal interviews with stakeholders and people from different teams to understand what pieces are in play here that are touch points for the customer. Then, just like our optimized task flow, then you can work on your desired future state maps for the customer journey or the service blueprint. So I didn't understand this. I didn't understand why they jumped in with fictitious people and went straight to the desired future state. That didn't seem like good process to me. Could they have had a good outcome from this? Maybe. But it didn't seem like the right way to get there. And I think if I were working with a company to establish their UX strategy or their overarching customer experience vision, I think I would probably want to go more with the traditional time-tested full approach to it and not the short version of, we already know the as-is state, so let's just work on a desired future state. I think that's not what I would recommend. If they did this, then they just didn't tell the story very well. But or maybe I skimmed right by it. But there you go. We defined our users and we found experience stories, capabilities, and plans. Experience stories. You know, compared to this, I guess I would have to recommend the NNG class because this seems better than that, though I did have some dissatisfaction with the NNG course. But I would say the NNG course, despite its faults, would get you closer to a good approach to UX experience vision, strategy, journey mapping, desired future state, service blueprinting, desired future state, and the like. I'm not sure this is the best way to get there. But good luck to Red Hat. Okay, this was a job. And it's at, I am bad with Scandinavian sounds, so I don't know, someone who speaks Scandinavian languages, Copenhagen, Denmark, would tell me how to pronounce this. I don't know. We make the best shopping apps, and that's why we're looking for a product manager. That sentence didn't totally make sense, but here we'll go. Now, oh, and it was UX obsessed and hands-on product manager. Now, that's obviously a few red flags already. I certainly like when product managers care about UX. Obsessed, I don't need you to be obsessed. That sounds unhealthy. Hands-on tells me you're doing the UX. So it sounds like they're trying to hybridize a UX job and a product manager job. So let's see what they want. Prioritizing the right product changes, taking responsibility for feature backlog. That sounds like product management. Idea generation and development direction for our apps. That sounds like please workshop stuff. So not so sure. Constantly improving the user experience by collecting, interpreting, and using behavioral data from our apps. That sounds like quantitative research and secondary research. It doesn't sound like you're going to interview customers or speak directly to them, which would be bad. In collaboration with your teammates, you'll contribute to the design to make our apps easy to understand and intuitive. If I work in the UX department and the product manager is being told to design with me, I am quitting. So if that's the way the company wants to run, that's fine with me. But if that product manager doesn't have years of UX experience, that's putting them in the wrong job. Chances are when this company hires a UX person, they're looking for 1-2 years of experience at the very least. If this product manager wouldn't qualify for at least a junior UX job with, say, 2 years of experience, I don't want them designing. The end. Chi says, sometimes I feel those videos about using storytelling and UX as an attempt to draw parallels between UX and Squid Game. Contributing to app strategic direction, yes, that's product management. Using your experience to look for monetization possibilities. That sounds very business focused and not customer centric, so that's going to be ouchy. Making sure we have a client focus when we develop our apps. Doesn't sound like there's going to be a user focus. So I would say this company is okay to consider working for if you aren't customer centric, if you aren't task oriented, if you just want to sit around, dream up features, and try to make clients happy. Ultimately, I think clients will be happier when we make their customers happier, but that still doesn't seem to be hot right now. It just seems to be hotter to try to tap dance for clients. I'm against it. Madalena says, oh, wowsy, that title. And Darren says, that title sounds like something from Saturday Night Live. Yeah, it's weird. Let's see how many more we have. I know I'm running late, but y'all sent 25 things in. Okay, we've got 4 more things. We're going to make it. All right, this was the very, very sad article, Democratizing Research at Miro. And I do like Miro, and I hope that they will fail at democratizing research, because democratizing research is bad for UX, it's bad for research, it's bad for everybody's jobs, and I have a mountain on this in episode 115 on the YouTube channel. Remember, you can subscribe here on the YouTube channel, empathize with the like button, and of course you can visit all of the links related to the channel for asking and reacting and giveaways and all the stuff you're always asking me about. The HR training, the Acture courses. What else did I put on that page? There's a mountain of stuff. Oh, the calendar of events too. That's there. Okay, so I started skimming this earlier today, and it sounds like this person wanted to democratize research at Miro for the typical bad reason. And that was, oh, where was it? Oh, so first they read a bunch of articles that were mostly for democratizing, and one that I've talked about before that was against it. And this was something that I was worried about, that instead of supporting qualified UX researchers being hired, this person makes the excuse that hiring takes time and resources that companies don't have. Well, then how did you get your job? You know, the bottom line is companies hire people, and that takes time and that takes resources. And we should never, never act like maybe we don't really need researchers, or maybe we can let other people do research because, gosh, hiring takes time. Yeah, hiring takes time. Let's take that time and let's do the hiring right. So this is not a good reason to democratize research. I went into this in great detail in episode 115. So if you're under pressure to democratize something at your job and you need some ammunition against that, please do check out episode 115. You can go to YouTube and write Delta CX 115. It will come up. Larry says, yeah, maybe we can let the salespeople code too. I know, that's what I always say. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why this doesn't make sense, but I actually do slides and slides of math to show that the cost benefit analysis here actually doesn't work out. Madalena says, I'm connected with the author on LinkedIn and he often posts job ads for researchers. Okay, well then question marks popping over my head over what exactly is going on here. Maybe this isn't working out for him. Because I think when researchers get hired into an organization that is trying to make everybody a researcher, I see researchers quitting a lot of those jobs. So maybe he's hiring because people are leaving because he's democratizing. That would actually be one hypothesis that I would have. and a hypothesis that I'm not afraid to share with him, that perhaps you are losing researchers because people don't want to be treated as if anybody can learn what you do quickly. The weird thing is that from here on, from what I skimmed, it looked like they were just talking more about making sure that research is efficient and answering the questions that stakeholders and others need to do their work. And then I thought, well, that makes sense, but that's not democratizing. And so I ultimately, by the end of this, couldn't understand what his definition of democratizing is, because we've seen on the show in the past that there's two definitions of democratizing research. There's people like Michelle Ronson who believe that it's just good collaboration and making sure we're sharing our insights and findings in clear ways where people have access to them. And I say that's not democratization, that's collaboration. And then there's democratization, where people believe that everybody can do research. It's like the lean UX approach. Everybody can do research. We don't really need specialists. We'll have product managers take a few hours of training, and they can do interviews and tests and whatever. That's the typical definition of democratizing. Madalena says they have 10 steps in their process. You mean 10 steps to interview with them? That seems inefficient. Oh, or the research has 10 steps? Is that what you mean? I'm not too sure. Lean UX. It's terrible. All right, let's move on. Oh, this article was great. This article was so good that I invited Trina to be on the show, and she said yes. So we are going to meet Trina hopefully in January. I didn't really have a lot of open time slots for the rest of the year, as I am going on a long vacation soon. But I'm super excited to meet Trina, and I'm following Trina on Medium, and the last few articles that have popped up have been just fantastic. And so this is definitely somebody, 5 dogs out of 5 for sure, somebody I hope we're going to get to know better. So basically, this is UX theater. Oh man, I loved this article when I read it. I just thought, I don't know her pronouns. I apologize. I'm going to say she. I thought she was right. And yeah, we've talked about UX theater and performative UX and aspirology workshops a lot on this channel. So you know that that we're against that too. And yeah. And then she starts talking about UX matters with that racist white woman tweeting at Vivian Castillo, which no one should do. No, never. Oh, good God. So yeah, I've read a few of Trina's articles here, and so far I'm a fan. So, oh, dog's still on the screen. You can't go wrong with dogs on the screen. So yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm a fan. Follow her on Medium. I've enjoyed her last 2 or 3 articles that have popped up since I followed her. Madalena says, no, Miro's interviewing process is long. It's 10 steps. Well, then they should make that more efficient. Maybe they need to run a design sprint. Okay, another design thinking comic. This was evidently in response to some of the tweets that were going around the other day, where Doug Collins asked, what is like an unpopular opinion that you have? And they wrote, they have this comic, and it says, here's theirs. Unfashionable and inadvisable secret confessions. I'm automatically suspicious of anything I read in Medium. Yes, you should be. I've enjoyed switching back to Photoshop after 3 years of Sketch. Not, I don't blame you, though I'm using Acuity. Not sponsored. I sometimes prefer working by myself rather than in a team. I agree. Product designer is the most confusing job title we've stolen recently. This is like triple fantasticness. Yeah, that's another confusing title that wasn't even ours. Yep. I miss making Flash websites. I do not. I have no strong feelings about burger menus. They're fine. I agree. People are like, they're the worst. And I'm like, I don't know. They're extremely useful. And when they're organized well, they're good. Material design has stunted our collective brains. I don't think so. But I think it's a good set of guidelines. But it doesn't mean you have to follow everything. You can be creative. But they say, oh, someone they actually interviewed said, material design is great. We don't need visual design anymore, which is not true. I love anything Jacob Nielsen hates, anything out of principle. I think that's funny. And coffee tastes like warmed up poo. I can't comment on that because I have not tasted warmed up poo. I actually haven't tasted poo at any temperature and don't plan to. All right, that was our last one. We only went over 12 minutes, not too bad. Thank you for putting up with me today, being totally unprepared for this. Didn't have my microphone plugged in, didn't put on my concealer, didn't have my microphone unmuted. The worst start of a show in a while. So thank you all for your patience and understanding with the terrible start that the show got. If anyone has any last thoughts or comments, let's get those in the chat room before we wrap up. Meanwhile, I will make sure to, let's see, let's open up my calendar really quickly. Lily says, made my day. Thank you. Well, thank you, Lily. Thanks for joining. Darren says you need a rim shot sound effect, especially for warmed poo. I know it does feel like that. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the calendar. So even though, of course, you can go to the new links page and see the calendar, deltacx.com/links, all kinds of links related to the show. If you are looking to jump somewhere, jump there. Again, our giveaways, our extra courses, our what else is on there? I can't even remember. Our calendar of events, our reaction streams, it's just everywhere. So I'm just going to keep this up here all the time now so that everybody knows. Next week's shows, let's take a look. Monday, I'm going to be reading my Medium article, How to Make CX or UX Agile in 5 Steps. I don't promise that they're easy steps, but I do promise that there are 5. Tuesday the 2nd will be Office Hours Ask Me Anything at the usual time, 6:30 p.m. Italy time, though please check your calendars because next week North America is changing clocks. No, next week we're changing clocks and you're not, so it's going to be a different time. Be careful. And Friday the 5th, we're not doing reaction stream. We're doing another podcast on the realities of UX work. That's going to have Solomon and Sophie and Julia. And that's going to be a little funky. I have to check with y'all about the time zones because we're going to be off an hour from usual. Check what time it is in your calendar. I will ping everybody. Monday, I'm going to be reading my new article about, Monday, November 8th. I'm going to read my newest article about fixing the 2 key problems in UX education, which is going to lead us to our new series called Think Out Loud, where I'm going to actually do live work, realistic work, design challenge work. I'm going to do it live here, and I'm going to be thinking out loud so you can understand more about my process because UX education stinks, partially because we're shown inputs, we're shown outputs, and we're basically asked to reverse engineer what happened in between. That's too hard, especially if you're still learning. Tuesday the 9th, Office Hours Ask Me Anything, but not with Darren and Dr. Nick. They've been moved to Friday, November 12th. Note we've moved a couple of them to Fridays for November and December, not Tuesdays. Wednesday, November 10th, our Slack monthly networking, which is similar to Darren's Chit Chat Hour, which you should check into. Friday, November 12th, Office Hours Ask Us Anything with Darren and Dr. Nick. And Monday the 15th, mark your calendar for my first live design challenge. I will take a design challenge live from the audience or from one of these goofy ass design challenge sites or an example of real work from something you've had to do at your job. And we're going to use this as an improv kind of thing where I am going to ask you for what should we pretend we learned from the research so that we can pretend we're working from good data. We'll make a list of things that we wish we knew and what I would do in these cases. And then we'll improvise what we want to pretend we know. And I'll show you how I would use that information to inform my design. Let's see. Madalena says, I started watching Blackadder after you mentioned it. Yeah, do you like it? Chi says, thanks, you're worth staying up for. It's 1:45 a.m. here. Sorry, Chi, thanks for staying up. These are archived if you don't want to join live. They're always in the YouTube channel in their respective playlists, but thank you so much for staying up. Charlene says, Blackadder is super look, and I love all the actors. Me too. Oh, Madalena says, I have a cunning plan, which, oh, thank you, Elena. And please tell me how to pronounce your name. I never know whether to say Elena or Elena. Please give me some phonetics. I want to get everybody right as much as possible. I have a plan so cunning you can brush your teeth with it. Though if you've seen the last episode of season 2 of Blackadder, I love when Rick Mayall, the sadly late Rick Mayall, says, "I've got a plan and it's as hot as my pants." Darren says, "Truth be told, on Apple TV is awesome." On Apple TV, we enjoyed Ted Lasso, and we mostly enjoyed Schmigadoon. Alena. Okay. Okay, I was calling you Alina, I think, but Alena. All right, I got it. Correct me if I mess it up again. And what is this message coming in through PayPal? Thank you. That was Alena. Okay, so ooh, boo, 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 boo. Okay. Oh, Darren says, "I love Ted Lasso and Schmigadoon had me rolling." Yeah, so these are the things we're watching on Apple TV right now. On Disney Plus, we are actually watching The Mysterious Benedict Society because we like low drama things where nobody really gets too hurt for too long. We do not watch most of the things that the rest of you are watching. We're low drama people, in case you can't tell. Anyway, I can't believe it's Friday, but I'm so happy we've spent the week together. So good to see everybody here in the chat room today. A great audience. Thank you so much for all of your donations to the channel. I really appreciate it. This was probably our biggest donated stream so far. And so thank you. I'm so honored for that. And again, special thanks to those who are giving monthly donations to the channel. You can join for as little as $3 a month. You get special emojis. That's mostly it. I didn't make too many perks because even though YouTube recommends like members only stream and members only chat, you all know my policy. I don't want to be, I got a graphic for it. I don't want to be the gatekeeper. I don't want to say, well, you know, you're only going to get this from me if you pay for this thing. We all know who's doing that, and I don't want to be that person. So mostly you're just donating to the channel to help pay for these graphics and chocolate chips. And so thank you for everybody who has been donating to the channel in one way or another. And Ray says, thank you for sharing. Thank you, Ray, for joining. Good to see you. And all right, so everybody have a great weekend. I'm going to play us out of here, but I'm going to see you on Monday where we're going to talk about making UX fit into Agile a little bit better, if possible. Madalena says, "I only watched first season of Blackadder. Well, remember my favorite line? So you're saying that something you've never seen is slightly less blue than something else you've never seen." So true at our jobs. Darren says, "What happened to the cheese? I went off keto. I'm not doing keto anymore. When I was doing keto, you were all buying me cheese. Now I am not doing keto, so I'm just eating chocolate chips." Larry says, "We've all paid our dues. That's why we're here." Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm going to play us out of here. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all Monday. Be well. Bye. Thanks.
Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are